Pray for blackouts, for a packed grandstand. Pray for ex-cons and no back door. Pray for Milwaukee men eating turkey legs whole, who watch hours as we climb the chairlift stairs. Pray for the heavy Clydesdale hooves and the girl who waves the 4-H flag, for our footsteps swept out with the dirt. We'll spike our shake-ups and drink them with the safety men. I'll sever the spider's arms so they'll fall around its trunk. You'll watch closely on the ground. They know we'll ride the Himalaya, so pray for the wrong direction. For broken levers, for the Alabama man to drop down onto the console. We'll clutch our slutty drinks. We'll stumble to the logjam. Pray for frayed seatbelts. Pray for the long drop. Pray that tonight, when our mothers rise from their incense blankets, their sacrificial wine, from their shrines winking like fairway lights, when they look down at our waiting beds, pray for the salt in the sheets, for the body hollows. Pray then for the final break. I should probably give my disclaimer that I have to give every time I read that the mother in my poems is not my mother. So hi Mom, I'm sure you're watching this recording 2 weeks in the future and that mother is not you. I wrote this poem after spending a lot of time in the mall when I was a kid, and there's this bank of payphones, because there were still payphones back then, up near the entrance, and there were like 5 of them, and they would just ring. They would ring, and teenage girls who were like 3 or 4 years older than me would very confidently walk over to those payphones and pick them up, and then talk. And at first it didn't like strike me that maybe like there were people who had the phone numbers to those payphones and those were prearranged phone calls for your cell phone. It just seemed like magic to me. Like somebody was calling, and if you were 16 years old, it was for you. So you had to go answer the phone. And I thought about that a lot growing up. And of course, when I turned 16, the payphones had all disappeared. But this is a poem for those girls. It's called mythomania, which is a word that means the compulsion to constantly lie. Mythomania. I met them by the silo outside Joy Prairie. They called the mall payphone until someone picked up. I always picked up. I was Orange Julius forever, then I was blackest coffee. I brought them saltwater taffy to chew on while they looked me over. They palmed their smokes with practiced hand. I asked for consent and I shucked down my dress, and after their applause, I let them see my State Fair heart. We went to the hot dog parking lot. They taught me to drive their Toyotas. They were my first time. There were others later. Other tablecloths on tables. Another radio. Men who would dive down through grain to retrieve things I'd thrown in. Who wanted a Midwest map. Asked, what did they do to you back then? I always said, everything. Lies I told. I never made my living on the phone. I didn't see you, I'm sorry. Maybe the cold rain or the nighttime. Anyway, gin is my favorite. Your house is fine. I always walk 2 miles to work, and I'd love to see your succulents. Of course, I never wore your Aran sweater while I stirred the red sauce. I always washed my hands. I washed my sheets between, and when they were red, I'd made it up that morning. When I laid late in bed, I was reading the book, of course, Russian. I wore the lace, the piece you talk about. I didn't tear it on purpose. Your dog seemed to like the hot back seat, lying in the sun that way, like a lover. I never loved anyone before I loved you. The far end is the shallow one, I promise. I came here as a child. I'll never need another father. I clapped for you afterward, but the banquet hall was so familiar, and you were so familiar up there that I was so happy. So a couple years ago, more than a couple years ago, A very long, sad time ago, the best summer of my life happened when 2 different movies came out about Victorian magicians at the same time. Do you guys see The Prestige or The Illusionist, those movies? I love Victorian magicians, apparently. That was a discovery I made that summer, and ended up writing a lot of poems about them. This is one of them. It's called Magician's Girl. You'll know when my gossamer singlet flushes to its ends in fire. The black hats, too, begin to hate you. One wrong word and their brims curl to reveal knives. By Thursday, the floor translates your footfalls as Morse code. At your step, the oubliette opens. Another narrow knot death, and the curtains become girls again. They leave you again. They don't love you like mother does, bound to the velvet cord, febrile mother willing your water tank, your white-gloved touch, the part of her night where she is finally a half of you, despite the involvement of blades, despite my holding down hands. She knows about your knobbly bedmates, their soft white hair, girls lost in the long moraine of your arms, big-toothed girls, girls who disappear and disappear. You blame yourself. Why? You don't know that what you do in the dark of your room, I do it too? Watch closely. Here are my man's hands. Here is my girl's mouth, speaking. I'm just going to read a couple more from this and then move on to some newer poems. My young adult book series is about a young teenage Sherlock Holmes character. But I wrote this poem, I think maybe it's the first sort of glimmer of that. So that's sort of who you can imagine the speaker being. The title refers to the worship of oneself as a god, and the last line is from the Greek philosopher Racine. Autotheism. I'm 16. Every fact I know is filed away in my memory palace with its million rooms and the lighting of a county morgue. Ask me the slowest way to drown or how best to remove an eye, and I will let you sit close enough to listen. Clorox cleans. The galaxy expands. The girl who fidgets through my favorite class bleeds down her seat. I count the minutes. 9. Divide by reaction. None. Still, she's invited to the party that Saturday. I open my head like the man god birthing Athena, but no parties will have me. Not while I know everything. The man who will is half again me. Height, mass, depth, and lives in a loft in the meatpacking district because he is an inventor. I tell him once I ate a wasp nest like it was paper to become their benevolent god. He makes milk cartons, he says. The light goes on when the milk goes wrong, and then he puts on a German film and fucks me instead of taking me home. In my memory palace, my gait is as smooth as Lady Godiva, 10th century god gift. I think of telegraphs, 1836. I beat one hand on the wood floor, like the angels are interested in a machine like me. But the key isn't in my pockets. He took enough of my hair to stuff a pillow, but it is not me if it can be taken away. I forgive many things in others, nothing in myself. In keeping, I guess, with Sherlock Holmes, which is something that just kind of pops up all over the place for me. I spent a long time doing like some critical work on detective fiction, and I realized that part of the reason why I like the Doyle Sherlock Holmes stories so much is their language, and I began wondering what happened if you took a lot of that sort of Victorian language and applied it to contemporary life. And this poem comes from that. It's called Pastiche with Lines from Conan Doyle, Milwaukee, 2012. I've pinpointed the particular flaw in our relations. It's how you transpose each small riot into sadness, but have no Stradivarius to mourn on. You have my ears, and my feet freeze in our bed, and the knocking in the night is just a dear friend looking to score. Our cat is named for a name. We tweak our epaulets, we make margaritas in rooms populated by the ephemera of other lives that I cannot shore up my own against. This fashion rag tells me to think of the Highlands, so I drop water into my Lafrag, and when later, for work, I stand on the Scottish street on which I once lived, it is blue melodrama, or it is not real, and if the stories tally, I'll watch it again on the plane. This may appeal to your lurid taste in fiction, darling. I am your constant companion, and we have never both lived within these same walls. Just read a couple more. This poem is called Your 20s. The framed art creeps along the wall. The cat wants another cat. You make bowls that I eat from. I could eat, since your ask always comes at 4. The plants outside grow. They tumble down to the water, wanting water. I wake up in your arms. I remember not to look back when leading a man out of darkness. A girl outside asks me, "Do you know where?" and then blanches sudden as the morning. Years ago, I lived in a city built unto itself. Each street ate its own tale. When I marry you, I am making a promise. A mirror bought isn't bought alone. I'll go ahead and read this last one. Thank you so much again. This is called Folly. I don't know if some of you are familiar with it, what a folly is. I just learned recently, but it's usually a building that's kind of built as an ornament on some rich person's property. I would drive by things when I was living in Britain that looked like the Parthenon, but they would be like this big and in someone's backyard. And I became really fascinated with them and wrote this poem about that idea. Folly. My thinking was the hedgerows manicured on the manicured drive to the ruin. I spun it so the taut line of you in the seat beside was a favor to me. Your sulks I had loved for their tenacity, and you for your disdain of Baroque composers and dictionaries, and all but the very worst television, the plainest girls, of most things but me. I could do nothing with you in this way. On that English hill, I counted the 9 pillars of a would-be Parthenon, and you kicked a rock across a field. A pity, you said, what you find beautiful. Through your lips, the gap in your teeth. I could never help, as it wasn't what you wanted. I couldn't make bricks without clay, and the designs missing pages, and the structure spoke to itself at night. And still people came in their mud boots and corduroys, with their cameras. Aloud, they wondered how this began. Stone dragged from the earth to appease some small god that refused them and was forgotten. Thank you.